Here to weigh in is visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation and fellow at Hoover Institution, Kiron Skinner. Good to see you this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Let's take a look at some of these numbers of the Taliban prisoners released to date. 2,000 prisoners released to date, 6,000 prisoners and captives ordered released under the U.S. Taliban deal. And then Afghanistan frees 900 Taliban prisoners overnight. The question is, can you speed up the timeline of this? You look at the numbers there, you see how many troops we still have over there. Can you speed up the timeline without jeopardizing the progress that we've made?
I think it's a complicated question that the U.S. military is considering. There's been quite a media storm around the president's statement that the U.S. should withdraw from Afghanistan at a reasonable time. But as you know, he's been saying this all along, and he campaigned on a pledge to end the war in Afghanistan. I believe what's being debated about now in the White House, in the State Department, and in the Pentagon is a responsible timeline, one that may or may not happen around the U.S. election or around Thanksgiving, but a continual look at how does the U.S. draw down as the next phase of negotiations happen. Earlier this year, the U.S. and the Taliban came to an early agreement. The next phase of it must include the Taliban and the Afghan government. The U.S. cannot stay in Afghanistan forever.
Yeah.
To mention from the U.S. president the need to withdraw, I think helps keep fire under all parties without giving a firm date.
And Kiron, this has been an expensive operation in the Mideast. Just take a look at this. $1.57 trillion spent on wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria since September 11th, 2001. But as you know, you have studied this area, you know this inside and out. Any time that foreign forces, U.S., whatever, leaves this region, there is often a power vacuum that is filled by bad actors. How can we ensure that our drawdown does not allow that to happen?
By doing it responsibly, which means looking closely at the facts on the ground. One historical example I could give you is that when the Russians began to pull away their support from the 1992 Afghan government, chaos ensued, the military began to collapse, and 2 years later, the Taliban emerged. We don't want something like that to happen again. So open sources suggest we have about 9,000 troops, U.S. troops remaining in Afghanistan under the agreement with the Taliban. Earlier this year, by April 2021, the U.S. should be fully withdrawn. But that is conditioned on the Taliban not pursuing greater insurgency. We haven't seen that yet.
Kiron,